video, you're gonna basically make more connections between similarity and triangles when we're gonna be talking about finding missing sides. So it's actually gonna be using the fact that they're similar to determine missing sides, x values, or whatever is given to you. Okay, so just a quick little recap from last video, right? The symbol for similarity is this little squiggly line that basically that's how you read it, similarity. For this one here, I really didn't touch a lot on it in the other example, in the other video, but the name is going to be so important. Okay, depending on how the name is, how you decide which sides are basically like matching or corresponding to each other. So for instance, right here, like there goes the name right there. That notation is going to be the most important thing. So which sides correspond to each other? Okay, so what I like to do is you can either do it two ways. You can either do it looking at the picture or only looking at the notation. I say focus on the notation because it's easier. If you notice how the B is first and then the C goes second, so I'm going to highlight that. So BC, they're talking about this side. What that means is that you just have to go ahead and look at the first two letters in the name for the other one, which is BM. So what that means is that these two sides right there, I know they sort of blend together, but these two sides, so this side and this side, those are corresponding. So since it is similar, it'll be the same scale factor, and that those are two sides you would compare. Now, if we go ahead and look at the next two letters, we have C and D. So then that means we're talking about CD right here. That one is going to be compared to M and N because it's the next two letters in the name. And so M and N would go right there. So basically those are the sides that would also be matching. And then if you notice, right, since we're working with triangles, the last side automatically matches as well. But once again, if you just look at the name, right, it'll be looking at the first letter and the last letter. First letter, last letter. Oops, sorry. Okay. And if we notice, it is the one we're talking about, BD and then BN. So it's really nice to be able to see the diagram and read it, okay? So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to write proportions here, okay? So let's go ahead and let's do that. So based off of how I highlighted, so BC, I compared that to BM. It's okay if you write MB. For me, it doesn't really matter, okay? Because you're still talking about the same side. So BC, I compared it to BM, and then I went ahead and I did CD. I compared that to MN, and then I went ahead and compared DB to the last one, which is BN. Okay, and what the really nice thing about it is, because they are similar, I know all of these proportions, which basically is the scale factors. If we just, input numbers, they're all going to equal to each other. And so this equation right here is the super important one. Because this is what we're going to be using to help solve other problems, okay? So it's important that you're able to read the notation first and then going ahead and creating your proportions. So let's go ahead. Now I have numbers, the exact same shapes. I have not changed the notation, so let's see if you guys can figure this out. We're looking for BN, so I actually want to solve for this one right here, okay? Now, if we go back to our proportions, or we can just write them here, what I can go ahead and do is just start substituting numbers here, right? So I can go ahead and do CB is equal to 14, BM is equal to 7, CD is equal to who knows what. They didn't give us anything, right? So I'll put a question mark, and then MN, question mark, because again, they didn't give it to us. DB is equal to 24, and then MN, and then BN, what we're looking for, BN. So if you notice here, I have this middle fraction, which really doesn't help me. So what I can do is I can just choose to ignore it. I don't really need it. So it'd be 14 over 7 equals 24 over BN. Now, if you don't want to write BN, you can go ahead and write X if you want to. It doesn't really matter. For some of you that are already thinking about scale factors, you can already tell what the answer is, okay? But and if you're there, then go ahead, right? The answer is not that hard, right? And you can figure it out. So looking at this equation here, we can actually go ahead and cross multiply. I'm just doing it the proportional way because some of us this is what we're going to have to do. Okay, just because it's just a little bit harder for us to like see patterns there. For those of you guys that are really good with it already, though, I can just tell you what the answer is already. The answer is 12. Okay, So if you got that, go ahead and just, move on to the next example. For those of you that aren't there, what we can go ahead and do is just do this problem here by cross multiplying. So we get 14bn because it's just, what we're trying to solve. And then 7 times 24. I need a calculator for that because I don't know it. So 168. And then we can go ahead and divide by 14. There you go. So bn is equal to 12. So this is how you would do it, sort of the proportional way. You would set up all your fractions. Once again, it comes from the name. And then you would, one of the fractions pretty much is always going to kind of not help you because it either has no information or you don't really need it. And then after that, we're going to set up our equation, cross multiply, and there you go. So this is a very long method for it. For those of you that can already tell, what was the scale factor? Times 2. And so if bn is what we're looking for, then what number times 2 would give us 24, and that's why 12 works. That's going from small to big. But if you going the other way, 14 to 7, the scale factor is times 0.05, which means you would just do 24 times 0.05. Sorry, 0.5. And then that's just taking half of it, which again, it's 12. So completely up to you how you do some of them. There are going to be some problems where you're going to have to do it the cross multiplying way, but we'll just get to those. So for those of you that already figured out the scale factor and then you ran with that, go ahead, go with it. It's honestly the easier one. For those of you that can't see that, you're going to have to do it the proportional way. So see if you can get this one here. Remember that the name is the most important part. So M and P, so I'm going to go ahead and write my proportions based off of the name alone. I'm not even looking at this. You shouldn't look at that right now. You should only be looking at the name. So MN is compared to KS because those are the first two letters. And then I can go ahead and do the next two letters, which is going to be NP, comparing that to ST. So NP comparing that to ST. Notice how, again, right, these ones, I'm putting them in the numerator, and then the second ones, I'm putting them in the denominator. You cannot flip-flop these. That's very important. You don't flip-flop. And then the last one is the first letter, last letter, first letter, last letter. So we're talking about NP comparing that to KT. Okay. Now we could come back to our problem. Okay. Solve for X. So that means I'm just going to be substituting information in there. So MN is equal to 8. We know, yeah, that's a K. I'm just going to call that a K. KS is equal to 10. We know that, let's see, NP is equal to 4. ST is equal to X. And then the other ones, if you notice, there's no information whatsoever. So it's not helpful for me at all because it's just going to be question marks anyways. And so then this is the fractions that I'm going to go ahead and do. So 8 divided by 10 equals 4 divided by X. I can go ahead and do cross multiply. It'll give me 8x equals 40 divided by 8. X is equal to 5. Makes sense, just because if you go ahead and you put 5 in there, we can go ahead and compare the fractions, right? 8 over 10, is that the same thing as 4 over 5? So this is 0.8, and if you do, if you put it into your calculator, it's also equal to 0.8. So they match up completely. If you notice, the last one we don't have numbers, but that's fine because the problem already states that they're similar. So whatever numbers they are, we can easily assume that they will end up being 0.8 if we set up our equations, our fractions like this. So let's go ahead to the next one. Pretty similar problem. Go ahead and see if you can figure it out. So using my notation, I'm going to go ahead and come up with my 3 fractions. So it'll be CB over ZY, and then it's going to be BA over YX. And then the last one is going to be CA over ZX. So CA over ZX. I'm going to go ahead and substitute my information. Let's see, CB doesn't have any info, so I'm going to go ahead and keep a question mark there. And then ZY does have info, 8. And so then let's do BA has 25, YX has 10. And then the last one, CA is going to be equal to X, and then ZX is going to equal to 6. So if you notice here, This question mark in the first one, this question mark, I can easily put a different letter if you want to. The only variable that I would not use is x because we're already using x. So what I'm going to do is I'll just keep it as CB. And now it's basically you determine which two fractions are going to help you. It's pretty straightforward to realize you obviously need this one because you're solving for x. You only want one variable in the equation at a time, so that means you obviously need to use that one. So then my equation is going to be 25 over 10 equals x over 6. We go ahead and we cross multiply. It'd be 10x is equal to, what is that, 150, I think. Let's see, 6 times 5 is 30. So yeah, and then we divide by 10. So x is equal to 15. Okay. And so there you go, right? One last thing, maybe you want to do it. You can just check your work, right? 25 over 10, that is equal to 2.5. And then 15 over 6, is that equal also to 2.5? Yes, it is, because I just put it into the calculator. I know. And so there you go. This is correct. And so x is equal to 15. Okay. So let's go ahead to the next one. Same exact thing. I'm not going to do this one. I will just say the answer and you guys can go ahead and do the work. Okay. So the answer for this is going to be 49. For those of you that did the work with scale factors, you ended up using decimals here, which is one reason why some people decide to get away from scale factors a little bit and do proportions instead. Okay. So let's go ahead to the next example. If you notice here, the reason why this is considered a little bit harder is just because it has an expression rather than just an x. But you're pretty much going to do the exact same thing, right? Set up your proportions, substitute information, choose two of the three fractions to use, and then go ahead and solve. So based off of the names, it'll be km is equal to eg. Oh, sorry, that is so not correct. It'll be km over eg, which is equal to the next one is going to be ml over gf. And then the last one is going to be kl over ef. Once again, it just comes from the order of the letters. Okay, so kl, there you go. Substitute, and let's see what we can go ahead and get. Okay, so substituting, let's go ahead and let's see. Km has nothing, eg has nothing, so I can't use that one. ml is this one here, so it'll be 12 over gf, which is this one, which is 84, equals kl, which is going to be this one, 9 over ef, which is our 6x plus 15. Now when you cross multiply here, you're going to end up with pretty big numbers, and so I think this is where some of you are probably going to be like, we can just do the scale factor, but it'll just take a little bit of time for that one, especially if you kind of don't know what you're doing or you're sort of just grasping at straws. That's where it gets a little bit harder. So let's see, 9 times 8, 84 is going to be equal to 756. So I'm just going to go ahead and move that there. Equals to, so I'm going to go ahead and do this in 2 steps. So it'll be 12 parentheses, 6x plus 15. You can go ahead and distribute that already if you want to, but I'm just going to write it here just for the people that actually need it, okay? So 756 equals 12 times 6, which is going to be equal to 72 x plus 12 times 15, which, yeah, I don't know what that is. So 12 times 15 is equal to 180. And then we're just going to go ahead and isolate the variable. So we're going to do minus 180 on both sides. And then that's going to be equal to, what is that, 756 minus 180. I'm using a calculator, by the way, is 576. Divide that by 72 on both sides because I'm trying to isolate the variable. 576 divided by 72 is going to be equal to 8. That's the problem. What is the value of x? So therefore, that means I am done, and that is my final answer. There is another way of doing this using the scale factor. I'll go ahead and just say it. What you're going to do is you're going to figure out basically the scale factor greater than 1 to go from 12 to 84. Which if you go ahead and you do that, it's going to be 7. So what that means is to go from here to here is times 7. So then you could go ahead and do this as well, right? 9 times 7. And so 9 times 7 is going to be 60. Sorry, you can't see that, but it's going to be 63. And so what that means is that the equation you would end up really working with, and it's extremely easier, would be 6x plus 15 equals 63. Right, so this equation here, you can go ahead and solve by subtracting 15 on both sides, then dividing by 6. That's also going to give you 8. Okay, so that right there, that's the shortcut version, sort of, if you're going to use scale factor. Let's go ahead to the next problem. So if you notice here, it's the exact same problem, right? I haven't changed anything, the same numbers. The only thing I've changed is the directions. So what is the value of EG? So EG is this bottom one, but if you notice, EG is the first two letters. So the first two letters are K and M. So these two. So I know that X is equal to 8, and I know that my scale factor going from small to big is times 7. The only thing though is that I have no information there at all. So this problem is technically not enough information. There's no way for me to solve it. Unless I'm making up numbers, or I go ahead and do some other sort of math that will give me a number or maybe an angle or anything like that. But the whole point is, at this point, you can't really solve it because you don't have one of the corresponding sides at all, right? If I were to create my my three fractions, I would just have question mark, which already is just two variables, so it doesn't help me at all, okay? So you will get problems like this, so be very careful. Don't just start making up, equations and hoping they're right or anything like that. All right, so for the next one, same exact thing. See if you can go ahead and figure out the answer. Looking at the names first is the most important part. So BC is going to be it's going to be corresponding to BL. So that's the first proportion that I'm going to write. Not equal to, sorry, but just it's proportional, the scale factor. And then the next one is going to be CD to LM. So CD to LM. And then the last one is going to be BD to BM. Okay, so BD to BM. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and substitute, see what helps me or not. So let's see, BC is equal to 99. BL is equal to 27. CD is equal to, we have no idea, ML, same thing. So already, right, I hope you can tell that's the fraction that we're basically not going to be using. BD is equal to 154, and then finally BM is equal to 12 plus 3x. So can't use this one, doesn't help me. So then I basically end up with this right here. I end up with 99 over 27 equals 154 over 12 plus 3x. If you notice, I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply, and it's going to be 99 times this. And for most of you, this is why you would want to go ahead and, switch over to the scale factor method, or you can go ahead and just use a calculator, push through. It's going to be big numbers, but it doesn't really matter because you have a calculator, you have an option for a calculator during tests and whatever, for problems like this anyways. So let's go ahead. It'll be 27 times 154, which is 4,158. Yes, I'm using a calculator. And then once again, this is how I'm going to write it. Okay, I will put parentheses there for the first one just because it's going to help me realize that I'm going to have to distribute that 99 into both of them. So it'll be 1,188 plus 99 times 3, which is going to be equal to 297x equals 4,000. And at this time, really, you already did like the work at the new work, right? Basically, these three ratios, that's what we really care about. After this, it's just, do you know how to solve an equation? Do you know how to isolate the variable? And if you're having a hard time with that, then it would definitely benefit you to look over your notes and go over those type of problems. 970 equals, that goes away, we get 297x. Then we would divide by 297 using a calculator, and that's going to be equal to 10. Let's go back to the direction, solve for x, and so that means, there you go, we are done. Okay, and so these problems, right, they're not that hard, they're super repetitive. And if you notice this last one, it's actually very similar. Look at it, see what changed, because it's going to be really important for you to notice these kind of things. The thing that actually changed was just the name, right? If you don't believe me, right, look at your notes. It's the second triangle. So triangle BLM and then triangle BML. So right here, it's very subtle, but just changing that is going to completely change the answer, because now you're talking about your proportions are going to be different. So BC is now going to go with BM. Okay, so that already changed. Okay, from the previous problem. And then let's go CD is going to be proportional to ML. And then the last one is going to be, what is that? BD is proportional to BL. Okay, you set up your equation, you substitute, and let's go ahead and let's see what we end up getting. BC is equal to 99. BM is equal to 12 plus 3x. So already, there you go, that's the difference. And then we can get CD, which we have no idea. ML, again, no idea. And then we're going to go ahead and get the last one, which is BD, which is 154 divided by, what is that? BL, which is 27. Okay, so that doesn't give us anything. So we go up here and create my equations. 99 over 12 plus 3x is equal to 154 over 27. If I go ahead and I cross multiply, already you can see there that's different, right? It's 154 being distributed to the 12 plus 3x. So you could do the work there, and then the answer is going to be equal to x is 1.785. Okay, but just that's the only thing I really want you to notice with this problem. You will solve it pretty much the same way: cross multiply, distribute, solve for x. Okay, so right there, this is your these are all your examples for sort of basic examples. The next video is going to be dealing with more complicated examples, but it's still going to be doing the same thing, right? We're still going to create our proportions based off of the name, and then after that, solve. The only reason it's going to look a little bit harder is because the images or the figures are going to be maybe overlapping each other or anything like that. But if you have the names, the notation, the similarity notation, everything should be okay.